Hello children, so this is your teacher MACKNEROE, and today I am going to continue with the second part of the lesson name Weathering the Storm in Ersama. That was the last time I taught you, and this is for class 9th. Okay, so what you have to do is exactly you just have to place your book right in front of you and just do follow as I will be reading out the paragraph, and I will be also explaining those difficult words, meanings, and as well the narration of the story would be provided. So not taking much time, let's just start. Quickly word spread and his extended family gathered around him. Whenever something happened like that, I mean people will be gathering around you, those who are close to you, your family members. So that's what happened with Prashanth. When these people saw him alive right there standing in front of them, they just gathered him around and hugged him tight in relief. Prashanth anxiously scanned the motley. That is the meaning of that word, motley. Desperate, varied in appearance or character. Okay, they were all they were just so happy. I would say they were just so desperate to just meet this guy, Prashanth. As they were just thinking, right, that he is gone. I mean, like he is dead in that storm. So that's why they were just so desperate to see him, meet him at that instance. His brother and sister, his uncles and aunts, they all seemed to be there. Now, Prasan was happy because all of his family members were there, right in front of him. His uncle, aunts, brother and sister, they were all there. Okay, so let's proceed. As Prashanth's extended family came to know that he had come, they gathered around him and hugged him in relief. Prasanth saw that everyone was worried and injured. He met his siblings, uncles and aunts. Okay. By the next morning, as he took in the desperate situation in the shelter, he decided to get a grip over himself. Kids, I want you to please follow the book. I'm reading out the paragraph right now. Here it is again. By the next morning, as he took in the desperate situation in the shelter, he decided to get a grip over himself. He sensed a deadly grief settling upon the 2,500 strong crowd in the shelter. 86 lives were lost in the village. All the 96 houses had been washed away. It was their fourth day at the shelter. So far, they had survived on green coconuts, but there were too few to go around such a tumult of people. The meaning of tumult is there in the bracket, and it means noisy crowd. Okay? Usually when you are in a crowded place, when such kind of situation occurred, you will be hearing such kind of noises all the time. Like they need something, they want to eat, they are famishing, they are hungry and all that. Okay. So such thing is termed as tumult. T-U-M-U-L-T. Noisy crowd people. So Prashanth was trying to help them out. Let's see that how Prasan is providing help to these people. Now the explanation of that paragraph. The next morning Prasan realized that he had to get over his emotions and take charge of the situation. The huge crowd of around 2,500 people in the shelter was full of sadness as they had lost everything in the storm. 86 people had been killed by the super cyclone. They had been at the shelter for the last 4 days. They had been eating raw coconuts, but now these were insufficient for the large number of people. Yes, they were surviving on coconut, raw coconuts. They were just eating those coconuts because they didn't have anything to eat. Everything was gone. And in one shelter, there were about 2,500 people who were living there at that moment. Okay, and Prashanth thought that, okay, let me just help these people, and he just took that step. All right, he was there to help, and he was there to sort things out. So let's see what he is going to do. Prashanth, all of 19 years, decided to step in as leader of his village. This is the paragraph of the book. Please carefully have a look at the paragraph while I am reading it. Children, see, I am telling you again and again because I just want you to follow while I am reading out the paragraph, okay? So let's do it. Prashanth, all of 19 years, decided to step in as leader of his village. If no one else did, he organized a group of youths and elders to jointly pressurize the merchant once again to part with his rice. This time, the delegation succeeded and returned triumphantly. The meaning of triumphantly is victoriously. Wading, the meaning of wading, walking through water or to progress with difficulty. That is actually the meaning of that word wading, okay? Through the receding again, the meaning of that one is in the bracket, move back. Waters with food for the entire shelter. No one cared that the rice was already rotting. The meaning of rotting is there in the bracket, to deteriorate or to suffer decomposition. Branches from fallen trees were gathered to light a reluctant and slow fire on which to cook the rice. Now the explanation, all right. For the first time in 4 days, the survivors at the cyclone shelter were able to fill their bellies. His next task was to organize a team of youth volunteers to clean the shelter of filth, urine, vomit, and floating carcasses, and to tend to the wounds and fractures of the many who had been injured. Prashanth, who was very young at that age of 19, decided to lead the crowd of distraught villagers. He formed a group of villagers, including the elders and the youth. They planned to force the local merchant to give them the stock of grains and rice to feed the people. See how kind is this guy, Prashanth. I'm talking about Prashanth, all right? I mean, he was a person who was in that kind of situation that time when he was thinking that all of his family members are dead due to that super cyclone or the storm, okay? But now he has stepped up to do what? To help these people. And what he did, he gathered all the people, young people obviously, and he is just 19 years old. Prashanth is just 19 years old and he has that leadership quality in him. He gathered all those youth, the young people, to help him, and they decided to, give them some kind of task. You have to gather some food, or you just have to get some supply for us, for these poor women and the children, because they had lost 86 people in that village already. Okay, now the people, they were sad. Of course they will be, right? Because they just have lost their family members. These women who have become a widow right now. Widows, you know the meaning of widows? Wives who lost their husbands. I mean, their husbands are no more, okay? These women are called widows whenever they don't have their husbands. I mean, like if their husbands, die or something like that. So they are called widows, by the way, okay? So this guy, Prasan, was there to help, okay? And what kind of help he was doing? He was forming a group of people, and he distributed work to these people, and he himself was also doing those kind of work. Let's just see that what all he has done. The group succeeded and swam through the floods to get food for the crowd. No one was bothered by the fact that the rice was getting rotten, because they were starved and were ready to eat even the rotting rice. The branches of broken trees were used to kindle a fire. As they were wet, burning a fire was an arduous. The meaning of arduous is burdensome or exhausting or a laborious task. It was a slow fire, but they managed to cook the rice on it. See, they just went through the flood to collect those rice, okay, which were somewhere there floating. And they had to do it. Prasan just told those young people, please help me. We will just go there through the flood and collect those grains or rice or food grains or whatever it is, just to, fill their bellies. So they just went through the flood. They collected those food grains, and they didn't even care about that. It was completely damaged, but they still wanted to eat it because they were famishing. They were hungry. Okay, and to cook, it was again a kind of a burdensome and exhausting kind of a task. So they did not want to do it, but they were helpless. They had to do it because they had to feed those hungry people, okay, famishing people who were the victims of this super cyclone. The next paragraph, okay, it's not the paragraph, it's the explanation of the last paragraph. The survivors ate a meal after 4 days. Imagine, after 4 days they were having the chance to eat food. You just can't be surviving without eating a food for a day, right? Would you? Of course you would be, but actually the thing and the situation is different here. In this village, the super cyclone hit and thrashed the entire village. This was the scenario, this was the scene. And those people, they were not having anything to eat but raw coconuts, okay? And they were just eating those coconuts for 4 days continuously until Prashanth came. Prashanth decided that let's collect some food grains, whatever it would be, whether if it is damaged or not, we will have to do it. So that's what they did, okay? And they were able to eat after 4 days, just imagine. I mean, I can't be, eating without a day. I would be dying, and I wouldn't be dying at all, I would say. Actually, I'll go mad. I'll go crazy, right? It happens to every one of us. It's a nature of a human being that if you don't eat, they will seriously get, I don't know. It's really difficult to explain that sometimes. Why I'm telling you this? Because there are so many people out there, here, everywhere, those who are not able to eat. Especially during this period. Which period I'm talking about? This pandemic, the COVID-19. There are so many people who are struggling right now. Okay, so we should be praying for them. And then one other thing also, whenever you are having some food like that, leftover, please don't waste those food unnecessarily. Okay, right, so let's continue. The survivors ate a meal after 4 days. The second task of the group was to clean the shelter. They removed garbage, cleaned exitery waste, dead bodies, and tended the injured. Okay, they were cleaning the entire atmosphere there because there were dead bodies still lying, right? So they had to cremate those dead bodies also. Carcasses, those carcasses and dead bodies were supposed to be removed, right? Otherwise, it would have been a bigger problem for these guys, all right? So they just did that. All of these people, the young people, along with Prasan, because Prasan took that step. Okay, now the paragraph. On the 5th day, a military helicopter flew over the shelter and dropped some food parcels. It then did not return. The youth task force gathered empty utensils from the shelter. Then they deputed the children to lie in the sand left by the waters around the shelter with these utensils on their stomachs to communicate to the passing helicopters that they were hungry. Okay, now the explanation of this paragraph. The message got through, and after that the helicopter made regular rounds of the shelter, airdropping food and other basic needs. Now the explanation. On the 5th day after the super cyclone, a military helicopter flew over the shelter and dropped food parcels. It did not return later, but they needed food. So the youth in the crowd gathered empty utensils. The children were made to lie in the sand with the utensils on their stomachs to indicate to the passing helicopters that they needed food. The helicopters got the message and returned with food and other necessities for the crowd at the shelter. See, these are the things that they were doing. Okay, what Prasanth and group they did, they gathered all the children and they collected utensils and they asked the children to lie down on the sand there along with the utensils, keeping the utensils on their stomach so that the passing helicopters could see that and they would understand, okay, that these people are hungry. So these things they were doing. Just imagine that kind of situation whenever it happens like that. It's a tough situation. Prashanth found that a large number of children had been orphaned. The meaning of orphaned is there in the bracket. A child who loses either one or both of his or her parents to death. In Hindi we call it Anat. He brought them together and put up a polythene sheet shelter for them. Women were mobilized to look after them, while the men secured food and materials for the shelter. Now the explanation. A large number of children had been orphaned in the super cyclone. Prasan put them together under a polythene sheet. The women in the shelter were deployed to look after the children and the men arranged food for everyone. Okay? As the weeks passed, Prasan was quick to recognize that the women and children were sinking deeper and deeper in their grief. He persuaded, the meaning of persuaded is to convince, the women to start working in the food for work program started by an NGO, and for the children he organized sports events. He himself loved to play cricket, and so he organized cricket matches for children. Prasan engaged with other volunteers in helping the widows. That's what I told you, the meaning of that is women who lost their husbands and children to pick up the broken pieces of their lives. The initial government plan was to set up institutions for orphans and widows. However, this step was successfully resisted as it was felt that in such institutions, children would grow up without love and widows would suffer from stigma. The meaning of that is disgrace or a mark of infamy. Infamy means infamous, and loneliness. Prasan's group believed orphans should be resettled in their own community itself, possibly in new foster families. You know the meaning of foster families? A family that provides custody or guardianship for children whose parents are dead or unable to take care of them or look after them. Okay, such foster families are existing, and those children who are orphans, they could be staying with the foster family who will be taking care of them properly. Okay, made up of childless widows and children without adult care. Okay, now the explanation. The sadness of the children and women in the shelter was growing with each passing day. Prashanth requested to work in the NGO called Food for Work. Prashanth actually requested to the women out there to, work in an NGO group named Food for Work. In order to keep the children busy, he organized sports events for them. He took help of other volunteers to help the widows and orphans to return to normal lives. The government had proposed to set up separate institution for widows and orphans, but this proposal was successfully rejected by Prashanth. He felt that these separate institutions would neither help the orphan children nor would be beneficial for the widows. Okay? Now the thing is that, see, you must have heard from that explanation well, but let me just explain it again to you so that you will understand that what kind of help Prashanth was giving to these people. Okay, he even persuaded those women to work in an NGO group named Food for Works. So they would be earning, and at least they will be having something to pass on their time, as they were in that grief right now, you know, the widows and those orphans who were now left by those people, their beloved ones. They were killed in that super cyclone, in that storm. Okay, and just because of that, Prasan just took up some kind of step like that to help these poor women, widows and orphans, and those old people as well. Okay, these volunteers wanted to settle the orphan children and widows in foster families where they would get love and security. Yes, they were really, you know, caring. I would say they were taking care of those children now. They just want them to, you know, stay with those people who are the foster families, I would say. The foster families are those who will be taking care of those children who are orphans, and the parents, those parents who are not able to look after their kids. So there are such people like that. Such kind people are there in this world, and they are called foster families. They will treat you as if you are their own children. Okay, this is how they treat such people. See, love is everywhere. We cannot define it. So the thing is that we have to understand the situation like this whenever it happens. And we have to love everyone. We have to respect everyone. Okay? We have to share and care for everyone. This is how humanity is and mankind is. It is 6 months, now the paragraph from the book. It is 6 months after the devastation of the super cyclone. This time Prasanth's wounded spirit has healed simply because he had no time to bother about his own pain. His handsome youthful face is what the widows and orphan children of his village seek out most in their darkest hour of grief. Prasanth now was a hero. Now was a person who was really asked by these women, children and old people, as he was the one who took that step. And I would say really he was having that kind of leadership quality. All right, so just because of that, now everybody were just thinking of him whenever they were grieving, whenever they were in their pain, when they were sad. They were all the time just thinking about Prasanth. Okay, and this one is a true event, a true story that had happened in the coastal area of Orissa. Ersama is the name of that place where this super cyclone hit the entire village and the entire zone over there. And just because of that, in that village, 86 people lost their lives, and many children, they became orphaned, and women also, they became widows. Okay, now after 6 months of the disaster, this is the explanation of that paragraph. After 6 months of the disaster, Prasanth has come out of the grief of losing his mother because he was engrossed. The meaning of that is to concentrate or to completely engage in helping others that he forgot his pain. All the widows and orphans looked up to him in their time of grief, and so he learned to come out of this gloom. The meaning of that is darkness, dimness, or obscurity. Okay, that is the meaning of gloom. I mean, these women, they were just thinking about this guy all the time whenever they were in that kind of pain, that how Prasanth had helped them. And they usually, you know, smile and pray for this guy, Prasanth, who just took that step, a massive step to help his own people there in that village. I would tell you one thing, that everyone is having that quality. Everyone is having that. It's just to know that when we have to act. Okay? You are having that quality also. You must know that when you have to act according to the situation whenever it occurs right in front of you. Okay, kids, so that was the narration of the story and the explanation of the story. Now I'm moving on to the question answer section. All right, the first question, I believe that you won't be able to write them down or jot them down. So what you have to do is, as I usually tell you, take up your mobile phone and just take the snapshot. Okay, now this is the first question from the book. What havoc has the super cyclone wreaked in the life of the people of Odisha? Okay, now the spelling of Odisha is this, O-D-I-S-H-A. Okay, the old spelling and the name of that place, Odisha, the state which is in India. Okay, the answer is given over there. Have a look at that. You have your mobile phone, take the snapshot, and it's going to be benefiting you later. Okay, I'm moving on to the next one, question number 2. How has Prashanth, a teenager, been able to help the people of his village? Please have a look at the answer. There are some points also which are important, have been given for you. Jot them down or just take the snapshot. Fine. With the next slide of the question, question number 3. How have the people of the community helped one another? What role do the women of Kalikuda play during these days? The answer is over there. Okay. Question number 4. Why do Prashanth and other volunteers resist the plan to set up institution for orphans and widows? What alternatives do they consider? It's there. Are you taking a snapshot now? Really? Okay. Question number 5, and this is the last question of the book and the lesson. Do you think Prasan is a good leader? Do you think young people can get together to help people during natural calamities? The answer is there, and I believe that you are taking the snapshot, all right? Okay, that is the last question and the answer. And that's it, kids. I shall meet you in the next class, of course, class 9th, and with a new lesson to be explained by me and to be understood by you. Okay, so till then, hashtag stay safe, stay healthy. May God bless you.